Welcome to our new session, what we call Deep Dive on Demand, in which we will be discussing about the value of our super exciting project called THiNK Active, the new EuropeActive Research Center. My name is Alfonso Jimenez. I am board member at EuropeActive, and I have the honor to be the first head of this THiNK Active very exciting project. I have the session today developed thanks to the support of our sponsors, a group of committed individuals that became the members of the President's Council for Suppliers, Digital and Tech. These companies are providing not just the financial support, but as well the brilliant minds supporting their development to inform and advise EuropeActive President and the board in significant challenges that we have ahead of us. The session today focuses in the pillar of health within the EuropeActive manifesto, and I am honored to introduce you to our members of the panel today. We have with us Professor Gary Liguori, Professor of Kinesiology and Dean of the College of Health Science at the University of Rhode Island in the United States. That is a member of our scientific advisory board at THiNK Active. We have as well Dr. Silvano Zanuso, that is the leader at the Technogym scientific department and support some of the most science focus on oriented activities of the Wellness Foundation as well. And we have with us Dr. Xian Mayo from King Juan Carlos University, that is our secretary in the scientific advisory board of THiNK Active and has been leading the research agenda of the National Observatory of the Spain Active Foundation. Silvano as well sits in our scientific advisory board of THiNK Active. So we decided to invite three of our advisors in the scientific area of activities of THiNK Active and EuropeActive to discuss an area that is specifically interesting and attractive to me. That is, what is the role and the value of THiNK Active? If you remember, or probably you are aware of, last June, we published this kind of strategic and stimulating paper, the first one from THiNK Active. And we were basically putting in writing a significant number of discussions that we had ahead of the document, and as a result of the impact of the pandemic, trying to understand how the industry could be a more responsible and sustainable one, how we could reinforce the social and economic value that we generate for society, and how we should be addressing this. And we identified 4 key pillars to work, okay? First one is to provide the effective economic value of the industry. So we are recognized as a significant economic player in society regarding GDP, employment, workforce development, women, specifically in employment, youth employment, apprenticeships. Really important our role as a significant player in the economy of societies across Europe and across the world. The second one, very specific and at the same time generically broad, that is how is our social value, especially how is the impact in reducing healthcare costs, improving academic achievement, improving perception of well-being in societies, how we could be contributing to what we call the well-being economy that will be coming as a result of this pandemic. The third pillar, how the industry could become an effective partner in the Sustainable Development Agenda of United Nations, how we could, survive in this planet, basically getting more responsible citizens that are using the resources that we have that are limited in a more sustainable way. And the fourth pillar, that is basically about how we could advocate better for our value and our role, how we could be improving our ability to influence the world around us, okay? These 4 pillars will activate in the next 2 or 3 years specific research programs and activities within THiNK Active. We are starting with our European Data Hub project that will focus mainly in pillar 1 and 2, the economic value and the savings related with the regular practice of exercise and physical activity on the national healthcare cost in different European countries, but the other two will come as well. So if we look into the specific challenges and opportunities, one of the key areas is that I would like to discuss with our panelists today is how THiNK Active could serve effectively the different stakeholders within our industry or sector, okay? And we identified 7 groups of key stakeholders: the multi-site operators, the big multinational or national companies that are running multi-sports facilities, leisure community centers, etc. Okay. The second one, the fitness, very specialized boutique studios or other forms of provision of sport and exercise services. The third stakeholder about the suppliers, the equipment, the IT, the digital transformation players that are reshaping the way in which we were considering and defining our industry. The fourth one about the training providers, both for vocational education and training, but as well the role of higher education in this transformation of our sector and the industry. The exercise professionals, the workforce, how this could benefit from the provision of solid evidence that will inform their professional practice. Our media partner, critical for us to spread our positive message of transformation, healthy living, active living, sustainable development. And finally, what are probably the most significant stakeholders in the future of the recognition of the value of the industry, that are governments, policymakers, how we could inform and influence these policymakers based on evidence, and how this evidence will drive best or better practice that will help us as well to connect with them. Okay, and of course, as a result of these 7 key stakeholders connected, we will be able to engage better, stronger, and faster and farther with the public. So in connecting with, especially with this part of the population that is totally disconnected from the physical activity agenda. Okay, so the floor is yours. And I would like to get initially your views about how do you think that these stakeholders could benefit from the activity of THiNK Active as an independent research center. From the States, Professor Liguori, please.
Thank you, Alfonso. So there are multiple ways that this could be of value to the stakeholders. And one of the things we see is that both the economic and health impact as probably the primary driver. This industry in and of itself can have a dramatic impact on social mobility, on economic mobility, on cost savings across a wide spectrum. So there's the individual level where the person can certainly improve their health, but on the macro level, there's an opportunity for healthcare savings across the entire country here in the US, if not any other country in the world. So recently in the United States, legislation was passed that allows us to use our healthcare saving dollars to put towards fitness and health initiatives. That's a major move forward. It's maybe not the same as in some other countries around the world where the services are reimbursable, but we're moving slowly in that direction, and having evidence to support the value of how this industry can move that is critical for this initiative. We'll talk later certainly about the challenges, but Alfonso mentioned these services being considered essential. Unfortunately, in the US during the pandemic, it was the opposite. It was largely shut down. The industry was here, yet it's essential everywhere. It doesn't really matter what country you're in. That doesn't change the nature of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to show. So the value is to me, it's critical that we have the evidence to support that this works. The evidence has been around for decades, honestly, if not centuries. It's only more recently that we can show the economic impact that it brings to local economies and nationally. And we have to continue to provide evidence to support that so that we can move from it being an option now in our lives to something that really is a fundamental piece of how we focus on health. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. It's really relevant your comment here, because in another session we discussed with Larissa Davis in a number of other forums, but as well in one of these webinars. And it's clear that physical activity that is not a monetary activity has to really transform the way in which we show the impact in monetary terms. Because it's extremely powerful when you move from an activity that is in any way or form recognized as an economic contributor to society, to really identify what is this impact, because the perception from the other side of society, not just the governments, but as well the public, is absolutely different. So it's really relevant.
Yeah, and in this case, it's not a direct revenue driver, but it's a savings much more. So sometimes that's difficult for voters or legislatures to see the value in that, because the little bit of money we spend on the front end results in huge savings on the back end. And historically in the United States, that doesn't carry a lot of weight politically. It tends to be more things that drive revenue up immediately. And unfortunately, as you all know, driving revenue up on the front end sometimes has bigger costs on the back end. So this sector is the opposite. A small investment on the front end results in huge savings ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Silvano, what do you think? What do you think, apologies, about this fantastic opportunity?
I was thinking that we could be also stakeholder of the initiative, but we are member of the initiative. So we could be part of the stakeholders, but at the end of the day, we are part of the initiative. Why? Because we want the industry to grow, obviously, as a commercial company. And we know that the industry will grow through knowledge. And we need to produce knowledge, and the knowledge has to be produced and shared internally, so within our members, but mainly it seems that everybody agrees on that, should be divulged externally, so not with the entities that are already within the fitness industry. I mean, other organizations, governments, etc. So knowledge is key. That's why this initiative is very important. And I agree with you. With both Alfonso and Gary mentioned that a key issue is economy. So we need to produce economical evidences through data. So we need to better analyze our data and know that as company, our idea, our effort is that of producing solid data, physiological data. Those data has to be transferred into an economical value. We will grow if we will be able to show that being active really can save money. We know that within the industry. We need really to pass strongly this message. Being active is a really economical growing factor for the economy, for the well-being of a nation and the well-being of the world at the end of the day.
It is very interesting this point, Silvano, because you are shifting our initial discussion. We were starting to discuss how the internal stakeholders will benefit from THiNK Active. And you are saying, no, forget about the internal. The critical are the external ones, you know?
Oh, yeah, both.
Both, yeah. But it's clear that one of the things that we have to really carefully consider always is try to avoid becoming a selfish or endogamic organization, you know?
Right.
Because transformation is about disruption and revolution, and it's not about destroying things, it's to do the things in a different way. The different way is that forget that we put so much effort and energy internally on sending a message. Let's try to do at least 50% of this energy spent on sending a message externally, you know? And probably that could be one of these game changers or shifters that activate a number of other positive reactions. What are your thoughts around this? Xian Mayo, please.
Well, very related with the other two panelists. I think that both opinions were very important. But I also want to suggest that more than just the scientific knowledge that is emerging from this, also emerges the possibility to apply that knowledge to different stakeholders and different situations that are very interesting for all for all the stakeholders that you before summarize. From using that data that we have on other data that is available around, can be used to improve the way we do things. All the stakeholders can beneficially themselves and also the sector from the data. I am explaining myself. A tech company or a fitness center, a boutique, or even policymakers can explain better to other stakeholders, to the politics, to the regional level, to the national level, to the council level, how they are actually having an impact on different situations on people's life and contributing to the developed goals. I'm talking that if we can measure also how being active can produce more in terms of workload, reducing absenteeism or improving productivity, the policymakers also can compete with the resources of other local councils or other ministers or other directorates, and better explain that what we are doing in fitness sector is also having an impact on productivity, for example, or in transportation. If we are, and we can measure, and we can not also giving a number, an economic number, that I also think that is very important, but also adding that particular activity is directly related with that, in a dose response. There is also a better understanding between ministers or between local councils, in which we can also suggest that, for example, in transportation, having a physical activity impact for companies, for tech, for any stakeholder is also contributing with these development goals that I was talking about.
This point of claro, one of our challenges is to really build THiNK Active as an enabling tool for the sector, and for the industry. That is generating this high level of knowledge that will help the industry to grow, as Silvano highlighted, that will connect better and for longer with the other critical stakeholders, mainly in this healthcare environment. And Gary was referring that it's important on this, I think, to make a more proactive pedagogical effort, or run a more pedagogical focused agenda for policymakers to understand that this is about savings, is reducing the cost, not just increasing the revenue. That sometimes for politicians, not just in the States, Gary, is always a challenge. But I understand this point as well, that you are telling us that at the same time, whatever THiNK Active is doing around this data analysis, evidence, etc., has to be able to translate into local action, because stakeholders at local action will use the resources and will benefit from this. And it's really interesting that you integrate another critical concept here, that is the dose response. The more you move, the more you generate value, the more generate value, better the savings, etc. In fact, WHO last update on the guidelines is reinforcing population to understand this concept of dose response. It's the minimum of 150 minutes, but as soon as you achieve this minimum threshold, everything starts to be more and more positive as you move more and more, or you move more intensively, or you are more sustainable in this particular behavior. So it's clear that there is a challenge, and we are moving smoothly into the second part of the discussion, this element of challenges. That is, there is a challenge always, that we are working in the area of research or providing evidence. That is what we call the knowledge transfer. What you are going to do meaningful and impactful with this knowledge. What do you think from your experience or particular thinking in this knowledge transfer challenge? What do you think that should be the 1, 2, or three key priorities to facilitate this knowledge transfer, you know? Whoever wants to jump, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first.
Yeah, go.
I think the knowledge challenge, Alfonso, is sometimes overwhelming, but there are multiple layers involved. So there's the knowledge itself and making sure that that exists in a format that all the key people out there can access it and understand it. And then there's the issue, I think, of actually accumulating the evidence, which would be the step before that. I think certainly in the US, we generally do a pretty good job of making sure we get the information into the right people's hands. Where this particular industry, I think, is challenged is getting the right information on the front end. So I think the knowledge and the information collection overlap. What I think the industry would benefit from are the small players, the boutiques, et cetera, understanding the value of the information they have at hand. So every day, for instance, they collect information on their clients, on their patients, on whoever walks in their door. But to be able to take that information, those pieces of data, and accumulate the evidence is where I think the industry as a whole, and something like EuropeActive and THiNK Active can play a role, is helping small players understand the value of the data that they have. So how do we collect that in a systematic fashion? You know, in a country of our size, that's a little bit overwhelming, but if we could find a way to create a systematic data collection, and then it really builds its own case, right? The data will show without a doubt the benefit on so many different levels. You know, Xian mentioned the workforce. We can help employers locally show that or provide the evidence that their healthier employees miss less time at work or rely less on the local healthcare system. So to me, that's one of the bigger challenges. How do we find a systematic way to collect data? And then once we have that, I think it's relatively easy to not transfer that knowledge to the key people who are going to help push policy forward.
Interesting, because the perception in the industry is that we are not good on making the information available to the decision makers. And you are shifting the point that probably we are not so bad, because the perception is that we are terrible. We are a terrible industry lobbying or advocacy, you know. But what you are saying, or what I'm understanding from you is, yeah, but forget, because we are quite good on this. The problem that we have is in the previous step, no, in collecting.
Well, I think the better data and evidence we have, the easier the second part comes, transferring that knowledge and getting in the right hands. But when we have no collective effort around that, then it's difficult. You know, Silvano and Technogym can make as much noise around this as they want, but they're one company. Granted, they're a global company. But if all of the global fitness companies had a shared pool of data, I think it's far more impactful.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Silvano, Xian. Silvano, you are.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was muted. You're right. Is the key word of those years. You're muted. Do you hear me? You're muted. So we are stressing the concept of data. So the importance of data. Data are absolutely important, even to transfer knowledge. And I like to use an expression that our president is using to say. He say that if you have a vision, and our vision is that of making all the world importance, making let understand, explain to the world how important is being physically active. So this is the vision, but without execution. So a vision without execution is an hallucination. So we need to execute something. And to execute something, we need to be probably very scientific, very well structured, but also very simple. So I was just thinking, what can we do in order to be very impactful, in order to communicate the benefit of physical activity? I was just writing some idea that just came into my mind now. For example, can a single studio, a single fitness facility, show and communicate consistently that if you accumulate 30 minutes per week, you can extend your lifespan of 5 years, or a health clinic can consistently communicate that we can cut the cost of insulin in patients with type 2 diabetes by 3 billion, I don't know, euro in Belgium, if people accumulate a certain amount of physical activity. And is it possible, this is a proposal, to show numerically that, I mean, collecting the data of the physical activity data of your clients, can you show what's happening economically thanks to your action? So you are decreasing the costs of the Belgium, I'm mentioning Belgium, I don't know why, by X amount of euro, because you're training those people with a given amount of physical activity. So probably to be impactful, we need to communicate in a very simple but effective way. So these organizations should promote good science, should run good science, but at the same time should transfer good science with very simple communication tools. This is my suggestion. So we need to start with data, with a vision. We need to use data to put in action our vision, but then we need to communicate in a very simple and easy and effective way.
I would say, if I could add to that, I love Silvano's idea of simplicity. You know, all of us here are probably guilty of talking forever about health and how to go about it, but it's really a simple message: move more and benefit more. And if we can simplify that message and show the economic impact, we're in good shape.
Yeah. To be fair, you know, in our company in Spain, in GoFit, we have been working in these simple messages. No, for example, last year we ran a nice campaign about how many minutes do you get extra in your life per minute of exercise. You know, and it was a really nice campaign called "Win to Your Life, Gánale a la Vida." And we were assessing this, so the message was very clear, and it was extremely well received, especially for those less active in our communities, you know. And at the same time, our activity, for example, with PwC, assessing the return of the investment, you know, of the members of GoFit that are meeting or exceeding physical activity guidelines during a whole year, is very impactful as well. And you see that what is interesting is that the impact that we are getting from these messages is not just from the policymakers that should be expected, no, because are the ones with conflicting interests, no, and limited resources. No, it's from the public. When we went with a campaign internally with our members about our sustainable development agenda that includes the recognition of our impact reducing healthcare costs, is where they became really excited with the members of our communities, you know. But I think that it's always a challenge to make this simple, and a statement or a graphic, or, you know, something that encapsulates everything, that is helping you to effectively understand as an individual what is the value of your active behavior, you know. What do you think, Xian, regarding this knowledge transfer challenge from your side?
Yeah, I think that we have here two big challenges that we have to solve in the following years. We have to be very, very sensitive about related with the simplicity of the message. So we need to start when promoting a health-related agenda in the fitness industry. We have to call things in the same way, we have to evaluate things in the same way, and we have to disseminate things in the same way. We have to be consistent using words and communicating the message, you know, as Silvano said before. And for that, we think we need a very important thing, that is some standards. We need to develop all together, because as we said before, it's all the stakeholders that they are going to benefit from this research agenda also, is to think about what we should evaluate and quantify in economical or modern world terms, using always the same techniques, the same scientific techniques, but also the same methodological techniques in which we are collecting data, we are analyzing data, we are evaluating data, and we are using the data to convince a policymaker or convince the public that is also another stakeholder that should be convinced, right? As you say. So for that, I think that we need, on the one side, key performance indicators, clear, related with assistance, related with dropout, related with how much time we can convince, enroll a participant, a client, a member in our centers, how much, as we said before, related with impact and response, how much physical activity, and how we are evaluating that physical activity in order to translate that in those key performance indicators. And the last step of this, I think, is being transparent about data. We need quality data. We need a lot of data, and we need to sum up the data from very different ways. So the fitness industry, also the different stakeholders, need to have people in their companies thinking on this and try to how make easy all the way from calling things, evaluate things, and disseminate things. People just thinking on that.
Yeah. Very interesting, because you are absolutely right. I think that as the challenge evolves and we are trying to reach different areas of activity and development and growth for the industry, it's clear that we have to build our blocks properly, no? And I think that you are right. We need the standards for data collection and data analysis and evaluation protocols. We need proper standards for reporting the outcomes, and we need specific standards, especially highlighting the message from Gary and Silvano previously on dissemination. No? So the message has to be this one message is fully agreed by the industry, and the data is supporting this message because it's collected following these standards, is reported following these standards, and is meeting this particular way. And I think that one of our challenge leading THiNK Active is going to really set those standards for this project to be successful, no question about, but what is resonating in my mind after listening to you three is that is a combination of factors, as always in life, and I try to be always in the positive side of life, and I don't see this as a difficult challenge. I see this as a complex challenge, So I think that is not difficult because we have already the technology to collect the data. We have already the vision and the drive recognizing that this is important. We have already the interest of policymakers, key stakeholders to receive these messages, and the public as well. And what we have is to get ourselves properly organized, because it's not difficult. It's complicated, but it's not difficult. Sometimes we perceive the things complex as really difficult and challenging, and this is demotivating us, and you are not, and we are not progressing or making a transformation of a change. So in this level of complexity that we are already recognizing, I think that we carefully have to try to do not generate the perception that this is going to be impossible because it's really difficult and it's going to be a mess and nobody's going to drive this. What do you think that could be our game changer on this particular recognition that this is complicated? Of course, it's not easy, but it's complicated, it's not difficult. What do you think that is the key element that will really shift this to absolutely and wonderful and impactful transformation of the value of our industry? Xian, do you want to think on this first and discuss this?
Yeah, you explained it very well in the way that it's not difficult. Well, the challenge here is try to put all the brains together and trying to develop a very single solution for things. the difficult part of this is put the brains together. Once it's that, and once we all think together, what is the best way to go? I think it's very not easy, but it's something that can be solved with a little of thinking. So the brain challenge, the game changer is actually the trying to develop a research center that is trying to manage or simplify all that process that is related with production evidence, trying to the evidence, try to make it simple and to disseminate the evidence in a way that is meaningful for everybody. So in that way.
Gary, what do you think that it should be our game changer?
Yeah, so I like what Xian said about just getting everyone together, getting everyone on the same page. That builds on what you said, Alfonso. And I think that's where THiNK Active has a great opportunity to lead this collective effort of, getting everything from the boutique fitness facilities to the global industry leaders like Technogym, getting them together to say, okay, we're going to do this collectively because it's going to benefit all of us, and we can send a really, really strong message.
You are absolutely right. Absolutely, it's a uniting movement that we need here to align the brains and the minds and the hands and the resources of the industry. Silvano, what do you think that is this key game changer factor?
In my opinion, a very simple key could be that of creating a shared and standardized index, eventually created by this association, representing one or more physiological data, for example, number of calories burned or maximal strength or the combination, or an index, a recognized, standardized, that can be easily transferable into an economical value. But should be something very, very simple. So if you burn 500 calories a week out of active physical activity, you will contribute to save €2 a week to your nation. Just inventing.
Yeah. Hombre, I think that becoming in some ways operational on this is critical to connect with the public and whatever is this brainstorming, thinking, unity movement has to arrive, as you are saying, Silvano, to something that from an operational point of view, any single operator in the industry, everywhere in the world, could arrive to the same number, and after the modeling, convert this number in something meaningful. This movement on reporting the social and economic value is coming. In the last 12 months, we ran our second big annual report with PwC in Spain, in GoFit, using a methodology based on the social return of investment model, but adapted to the situation in Spain, disability wage, cost, etc., and generating DALIs, values of our activity. The Gene Group was reporting 3 or 4 months ago in the report from the activity 2020, the social value generated by the Gene Group in UK for the last 5 years, and they appointed Sheffield Hallam University team and Larissa Davis to run this analysis for them, And at the same time, in the same week or a week later, SATS in Scandinavia presented the sustainable report of their activities for 2020. And with a group at the University of Norway, they were doing another health economic analysis, in this case, assessing the performance based on Qualis impact. One of the things that we were discussing the other day at the board is that it could be really good to do an analysis of these 3 independent companies' reports, trying to identify, if we could, instead of reporting in 3 different outcomes, if we could unify this in this critical outcome that Silvano was referring to, and I think that what I see from your comment is you are very nicely setting our agenda for the development of THiNK Active for the next probably 3, 5 to 10 years. No? That is going to be first to agree on these standards, you know, of these critical KPIs as Gary and Xian highlighted, no? To get first, this is the research framework, you know, that is we discussed the other day at our first SAB meeting. We need a research framework, okay? Second one, we need this unity in movement activation, okay? The unity in movement will engage all the stakeholders if the message is simple, clear, but is evidence-based. And we have already a lot of data in the industry that probably we need to cook this data initially to get the understanding of the value for all the stakeholders, internal and external, you know, and after run this particular index project that probably could be our game changer, you know, that is a tool, is a trading element that will automatically be, you know, reliable, be recognized in any different areas of the world and forums, etc., making it really simple. So it's quite nice, guys. You are making our life easier, which is great. When you get brilliant people and you send some key questions, they always bring you another views. We are almost getting into our allocated time for the session. But I would like to have as well your final closing remarks on what we discussed, no? About this role, value, opportunity, the complexity, the simplicity, the knowledge transfer. Okay, so as a closing final remark, Silvano, what do you like to consider as the, you know, your final comment or message to the people attending this session today?
We have to produce good science, solid science, and make this science very easy to be understood. This is, in my opinion, our role. This is the role of this organization.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Simple, clear, bravissimo. Yeah, Gary.
I would echo what Silvano said and just add that THiNK Active has a great opportunity here to bring together all the players in the industry, large, small, local, and global. So we take that simple message he talked about and we all agree on the importance of it and how to use it to forward the industry and the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a call for action that is properly defined, properly communicated, and is engaging all the stakeholders. Yeah, yeah. Dr. Mayo.
Yeah, the saying that I said before, keep things simple, having all the players in the same page, all the brains together, and having a clear research framework in which we can develop an easier standards and KPIs that are going to help us to obtain data and to convert the data in the number, in the measure that we want to translate our message to all the stakeholders.
Yeah, fantastic. My closing remark, I don't know if I should be doing this as a moderator, but you know, I think that we have at the same time to think big as an industry. I think that we have to now, so I think that the pandemic really put the industry under the scrutiny of the public and governments. You know, lockdowns highlighted a number of health challenges for society where physical activity could be a really transformative factor, you know, mental health conditions, you know, loneliness, etc. And I think that we have a wonderful opportunity now, and we have to really think big, because in my experience, you think big, you do middle, you think middle, you do small, you think small, you do nothing. And I think that we have to be ambitious at the same time in this particular part or time of our development as an industry, and reaching these crazy dreams that we are going to bloody transform the way in which society perceives the value of the industry And at the same time, we are going to reach more and more and more and more and more people to become active and enjoy life and discover the happiness of natural movement and everything around, you know. Really insightful and inspirational session today. Really, thank you very much, all of you, for your contributions. I think that we are coming to our end. A great pleasure for us to host Professor Gary Liguori today, Dr. Silvano Zanuso, and Dr. Xian Mayo. I would like to get this opportunity to remember that this is the first of another number of sessions that are coming ahead of our Health and Fitness Forum for November. We will have another pre-Health and Fitness Forum session in the next 9 of September. And please visit EuropeActive webpage. You have here the link to be up to date with the new developments and activities coming ahead of our critical and extremely attractive and interesting event for the whole industry in Europe and across the world next November in Germany. Thank you very much for our IT team on the back of this, the events team supporting our session. And thank you very much to all of you attending and listening to our brilliant presenters today. And thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you really soon face to face. Thank you very much. Cheers.